Well, it's all business today on the podcast. We're talking LLC and Mitch Stormer back in the fold, fresh off vacation. You ready to rock and roll here?
Yeah, back in the saddle here. Let's wrap up these conference previews and get ready for week one.
The real deal is coming real soon, and I love it.
Talking Illinois high school football.
If your goals are as high as you talk about, tonight's the night you go out and just take one more step.
It's a view from the West.
And it starts right now!
Welcome back to View from the West podcast, the podcast covering Illinois high school football on the western side of the state of Illinois. I'm your host, Greg Armstrong, joined again by Mitch Stormer. Mitch, you're fresh off vacation. You went down to Florida. Did you catch some sun? Did you get a little, downtime to recoup, really amp up for the football season here?
I got a lot of one and not much of the other, and I can let you guess which of those things I got. But yeah, good to finally get a little vacation in before school starts back up here for us, but also more importantly to get it in before the football season here. So like we said at the top, we got this one final preview, and then it's hard to believe that we're just a little bit away from week one kickoff.
Well, we're talking the Lincolnland Conference tonight, the Lincoln Trail Conference and the Prairie Land. We'll break it all down. We'll talk about every team, the players to watch. But Mitch, the fans, the loyal listeners have missed you so much. Give them the sponsor read. Give them who we need to know about here.
Well, I don't know about that they missed me, Greg. We had some great fill-ins. We'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, with as always, tonight's episode is brought to you by our friends at Breedlove Sporting Goods, Western Illinois' premier sporting goods store for uniforms, apparel, equipment, awards, and online team stores. They provide all the same sporting goods services as the big nationwide companies, but with a faster turnaround, and their uniform pricing is a fraction of the cost you're probably used to. They offer brand names such as Adidas, Under Armour, and Nike, and are extremely responsive to any inquiries. With a primary focus on the western side of the state of Illinois, Breedlove Sporting Goods is the fastest way to outfit your team. Check them out on Facebook or breedlovesports.com, or shoot Cal Breedlove an email at calbreedlove@gmail.com for more information.
We love our partnership with Breedloves, and people hopefully have seen it by now, but this season we're taking it to a whole nother level. View from the West merch is now available. You can head over to our X account, where we also have the link attached in the podcast episode description right here. Find a link to the online store. We have a variety of shirts available. We have the support local football t-shirt. That might be one of my favorites. I like that one a lot. If you're a fan of the old Smash Mouth football, we, of course, have the run, touchdown, repeat. That one, Mitch, that was kind of Knoxville inspired, I think. When we were coming up with t-shirt designs, the Knoxville offense is definitely a source of inspiration for that t-shirt.
Yeah, I think a few teams would fit into that mantra. So, yeah, we love that shirt. We do have a couple of teams that like to air it out, so we didn't want to leave them in the dust either. So, we do have that pass, play action, touchdown, repeat shirt. Looks real nice. Maybe a Quincy, maybe a West Hancock. Maybe looking for something like that, Greg?
Absolutely. West Hancock, we'll talk about them in a little bit. But Coy Dorothy, they like to air it out down there. So that could be the t-shirt for them. But head out, pick up the gear today. The store will remain open until August 28th. So right before the season gets up and going here, get those orders in. We'll get them shipped out. You'll be ready to go for those Friday night game nights. So again, you can find the link in this episode description. You can also find it posted, pinned up as the top post on our X account. Mitch, as we march closer to the 2024 football season, we're rolling out our season previews on social media, of course. As I said, you can find them on X or on our YouTube channel. But Mitch, we're expanding here. Whole new social media horizons. We're now on Instagram.
How about that?
Yeah. Hey, I'm excited. Mitch, you're all over Instagram. I see you posting stuff on there, on the gram.
I do love the gram. I think this will we'll have to get a little bit better at graphics. Not to say that we're not good. I just mean that we don't, we haven't done them in the past. So I know that that's something that we're trying to do this year on X. Specifically, you've been doing a great job of that on the videos and such. But I think we have some good ideas for standings or game of the week type of things that we can we can have fun with the graphics, and that would look great on an Instagram page. So yeah, looking forward to adding another handle to manage.
It's a challenge to our graphics department, and by graphics department I mean you and I. So
yeah, right. That's you. That's all you. And shout out to your wife, who's probably teaching you a few things along the way.
That's very true. Over the years, I've relied on her to teach me, here or there when I get stuck on Photoshop. But no, she's very patient and willing to teach. So, and I'm hopefully willing to learn. So there you go. So yeah, you can head out to Instagram, search View from West Pod. You'll find our stuff on there, our latest content. Keep updated with highlights during the season, game previews, analysis throughout the season. Of course, those season previews rolling out right now. So like and subscribe on YouTube, follow along on X and Instagram. As always, we thank everyone for their support. So tonight, our Lincolnland Conference previews. It's the last one we got left. Mitch, you're back in the saddle here, but you've missed out on a lot of conversations here. You missed the track, the Three Rivers Athletic Conference preview, and the Western Big Six preview. I think you mentioned you had a little chance to listen. Did you force your family to listen on vacation?
No, I didn't. I didn't want to be distracted, so I will. It's a twofold thing. I didn't want to force them to listen to it, but I also wanted to make sure that I was paying full attention to it. So yeah, certainly with big thank you to Ty Taylor of WRMJ for filling in for the track preview. I heard his comments at the top of the show, kind of calling me out a little bit. Maybe I wasn't going to be interested in doing that show. He might have called that one. He might have called that one correctly. But starting there, we had talked to Ty weeks ago. He was interested in getting our preseason rankings for both divisions, and so just to kind of insert my opinion, I guess, since I wasn't on that show.
Yeah,
I do think it'll be repeats for Rock Ridge and Princeton.
Yep.
I know Rock Ridge lost a lot, but I think that they have the pieces to manage that. And with their newcomers coming in, I think that they'll still reign supreme in that division. Princeton, we know what they have year in and year out. Big names coming back again this year. Same as Rock Ridge, lost some pieces, but those are two programs and two communities that can always find, the next man up. So I do believe that both of those teams will repeat in their respective divisions. Looking forward to that week 2 matchup between the two of them. You've posted a couple clips this week. What will Newman look like? We know what Newman's defense is going to be. Can they find that consistency on offense that Coach LeMay's been looking for? I think EP makes a jump. There are just a lot of with Mercer County coming in, Morrison coming out. There's a lot of intrigue there, but I still, at the end of the day, think the top two dogs will reign supreme there again in Rock Ridge and Princeton.
Yeah. Interesting. We did get a little feedback from some people after that Three Rivers Athletic Conference talk in reference
Imagine
to
that.
Yeah. Well,
imagine that.
Now it was in reference to the Lincolnland Conference and the Lincoln Trail and the Prairie Land. And people were quick to point out that, we give credit to the track for being a tough conference, but the Lincolnland last year, Anawan Weathersfield beat Morrison in the playoffs, and Roval Williamsfield beat Newman on the road in the playoffs. So there you go. So that's a comment worth noting here. They are correct that those were some crossover matchups, and the Lincolnland got the better of those games. So
look, the objection is noted, but
there you go.
I will stand by looking at the top to bottom. I still think there's great teams in the Lincolnland. I'm still gonna hold it that I think the track might be a little bit better top to bottom. But now we get some crossover. We got BV coming in, so we'll see how they stack up. But we'll get into that in a minute.
All right. So Mitch, thoughts on the Western Big Six? We had the full boat show.
Yeah.
Matt Schuckman from Muddy River Sports stopped in, and the gang from WQAD, Randazzo, Corey Kuffler, and the legendary Brian Stocking, of course.
Of course, in top tier form there from Stock.
Yep.
I wasn't on that show last year either. I think I popped in at the very last second. But
you did.
Again, a huge thank you to those guys for coming on and giving their expertise. Always great to get the WQAD guys. Obviously, they see these teams. They have seen them for however many years, probably decades at this point. And to get Shuck's terrific coverage of the Quincy area. So this season, again, there's a lot of intrigue with the Western Big Six, but I think the top dog is again going to reign supreme. I don't think there's any question about that. I don't think anyone on that panel had any questions about that. I'm not sure anyone in the conference has any questions about that. If Quincy can stay healthy, they've got the pieces to really make a significant run. I think with everything that they've got back, and I mean, they put Rico Clay on offense. That's just another weapon that if they lost something, they're just added a huge weapon there.
Yep.
And see if they can make a significant run, not only in the Western Big Six, but in 7A. Obviously, they ran into a pretty significant team there in Mount Carmel in the playoffs last year. But to beat Wheaton North in that second round game, I think gave them some momentum and love what they're doing there in Quincy. And again, I think what Sterling lost, what Geneseo lost, what teams like UT and Rocky have coming back, I think there is that second through, let's call it fourth, the second, third, and fourth place teams there. That's going to be a battle, and I think as those schedules play out week in and week out, those matchups are going to be pretty significant, not only for the conference standings, but I think that we'll see a couple more playoff teams again from the Western Big Six this year.
Now, the big question, the big debate on the pod was who finishes second. So can I pin you down? Do you have a thought on who comes in second place? Look at this, right on the spot.
Who did you guys say? I forget. You have to remind me.
It was kind of a mixed bag. I believe there was some talk about Moline, and I said Rock Island. Javian Clark Pugh and some of the weapons they have coming back the second year under Fritz Deodone. I think that there'll just be some more comfort there. I went Rock Island, but I think that showdown between Rock Island and Moline, it's going to be very relevant to the standings. I will say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right off the top of my head, I would say Moline too. I do think that we'll be impressed by Geneseo in year one of Coach Furlong's tenure there. I think that they lost some big pieces, but with a coach like that and a pedigree that he's got and the type of players that Geneseo usually has, I think they'll make some noise. But if I had to pick a second place team, it would be Moline.
Okay.
Sterling's got some pieces. They've got Drew Nettleton, right, coming back as their quarterback. Caden Phillips, one of the best athletes in Western Big Six, so they can make noise. They always do. But I'll give you that. There's my top three: Quincy, Moline, and Sterling.
All right. Yeah, there you go. I think what's intriguing is that for as much as we know about Quincy, there's a lot of teams in the middle that we have a lot of unknowns.
Right.
Geneseo has 0 returning starters. So United Township, another team that's very young. I think there's some, holes to fill in Sterling as well. There's just question marks there as well. So a lot of teams in the middle that it's really interesting to watch, how it all shakes out.
Yeah, I appreciated what Shuckman, the stats that he put up on what, if Braden Little kind of repeats the same season that he had, how he can finish in IHSA history. And I don't think that gets appreciated enough, right? And it's hard in our area because Quincy is a little bit further out, but I have no question that he's one of the best quarterbacks in 7A. That matchup with him and Jack Elliott from Mount Carmel is a great thing to revisit. But boy, if he stays healthy, has the season that we all think he's capable of having, and he's one of the top 5, quarterbacks in IHSA history, that's a big deal. So that I'm looking forward to seeing how this season plays out for him.
It's the Western Big Six is always interesting. They're very excited. All right, well, let's get to why we're here tonight. The Lincolnland Conference. We'll start in the small division. We'll start with Monmouth United. First year head coach Andrew Goodwin takes over the Red Storm. Last year, the United Red Storm were 3-6 on the season. They opened the season last year with a win at Mercer County. And it ended the season at 3-6. They returned 5 starters on offense, 5 starters on defense. Some players to watch here. For United, Nolan Jenks at quarterback / tight end. You also have Kellen Boone also listed at quarterback or tight end. So I'm guessing that, one of them.
How about those? How about that? The quarterback, tight end. What we got? A couple of Tebows here.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see how that shakes out, whether it's Jenks or Boone. But you have Mason Giddings at running back, Chance Stewart at running back, wide receiver, Zeke Clark at wide receiver, Egan Marshall as a tight end as well. On the defensive side of the ball, Chris Rodriguez and Quentin Hayburn, defensive tackles. You also have Kenneth Higbee as a tackle and an end, Jackson Gillen, Mason Giddings at linebacker, and Roger Brown also at linebacker. So there's some of the names to watch for. United, what do you see out of this Red Storm team, Mitch, heading into 2024?
Experience. I think one of the more experienced teams that we may talk about, a lot of their current sophomores and seniors saw some time last year at the varsity level, had some in-game experience. So the lights aren't going to be too bright because they've been there before. So Coach also mentioned that he likes their flexibility. Obviously, you talked about two players that could play quarterback and tight end. How do you mix and match that? How do you game plan for something like that if they decide to play them both? So, where they might have some holes, someone's willing to step in there and they have the talent to make that position successful. So, this will be a gritty team. They always are. 3-6 last year, but I think with Coach Goodwin in there, I think that those areas of improvement that they're looking for, they'll be able to obtain.
Yeah, I love what he said about their grit, that, they fight for everything they can get. And just that you love that, that hunger for a team like that. And also just a team that they're excited to try to take on that challenge of bringing the United program back to where, the expectations they want them to be, that high expectations. They want to get that back for this community. And I love that sort of thing. And I think that, maybe just the new energy. We talked about what Coach Milroy did there the last few years. Really liked what he did there. But maybe, having Coach Goodwin in there with just that breath of fresh air. And I'm sure as a first-year head coach, he's motivated. It's exciting to see what they can do.
Yeah, tough sledding for them off the bat for the first 4 weeks, though. They open up at home against newcomer Bureau Valley. Then they're on the road against Rushville Industry, on the road again against Roval Williamsfield, and then hosting Anawan Weathersfield. So that's a pretty tough slate there, first 4 weeks. Now there's room after that. If the record isn't what they really want after those first 4 weeks, I think there's opportunity there to improve. But if they want to have a strong push to that playoffs, they're really going to have to win 1 or 2 of those first 4 week games.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's a tough stretch to start the season. Looking farther down their schedule, week 9, a pivotal game for them could be against Stark County. So let's get into the Stark County Rebels. Head coach Jade Nord led their team to an undefeated regular season. They were 10-1 when the year shook out, lost in the second round of the 1A playoffs. They also returned 5 on offense, 5 on defense. A few names we're familiar with here. We read them out on the pod a couple times. Every week we read a lot of these names. Nolan Orwig, a senior running back, is back again. Chris Barnwell, a wide receiver and a running back. Dylan Steelman at quarterback. Connor Dahm as a wide receiver. Owen Hess is a senior lineman. He missed last season with injury, but did start as a sophomore. So great to see him back on the field. Hopefully he can, be productive, jump back in there. He's also on the defensive side of the ball on the line. Nolan Orwig again as a linebacker. Chet Gillespie as a linebacker. Cole Kinsella at linebacker, and Chris Barnwell will be a safety for them. So they have a good, some good returners from last year that he's excited about. A team that had a lot of success on the field. They have some of those names back. They hope to, maybe improve on their running game with the experience they have at running back. And, last year they had a great quarterback, right? And now this year, maybe they pivot and rely more on those running backs and, maybe some of the guys they have there in the backfield. So either way, I think that, this Rebels team should be right there in the mix.
Yeah, I think with that experienced line coming back and a back like Orwig, I think you're right that we might see a little bit of a shift in offensive philosophy and really rely on him. New quarterback, Dylan Steelman, got to get those wide receivers, their top 3 guys are gone. So now you got a whole new receiving core and a new quarterback. So yeah, stick with what you know. There's always obviously a lot of success there in Stark County. So for the Rebels to be that undefeated conference champion again, they'll have to do it with some new faces, but we've seen them do it before. And if they stay healthy, they'll need to, because the depth may not be there that they've had in years past, but they definitely have the threats on offense to make a run at doing that again.
Yeah, this will be a fun team to watch. Last year, defensively, Coach Nord described them as opportunistic, right? I forget the exact numbers that we read off, but it was kind of astonishing the way that their defense operated, where they let up some yards and it was almost like the ultimate bend but don't break. Do you remember talking about this, where they were letting teams in the red zone, but man, once they got to the red zone, more often than not, they were getting the big plays. They were getting the big stops. So I think for as much as you like that, they would love to have a little more urgency getting those stops, more 3 and outs, less pressure on having to make those plays in the red zone.
Well, they'll have to make a big play or big plays like they did last year in week 2. If you remember, Greg, they beat Anawan Wethersfield 21-20 on the road. That matchup is again week 2 this year. That will be hosted by Stark County. So could that be a game that determines the conference early on? Yeah, I absolutely think it could.
I remember that game very well, Mitch. I was there. It was a lot of fun. So
you could go again.
That was an all-time great night, because I started at Wethersfield and shot the first quarter, ran over to Kewanee, shot the second quarter, and then had plenty of time to get back and see an amazing finish there between Anawan, Wethersfield, and Stark County. That was one of those all-time Friday nights. It was great. So absolutely, a matchup to watch. We talked a lot about, and for good reason, Stark County, Anawan, Wethersfield, and Roval Williamsfield. We thought they were all going to be the top 3 teams last year, and they all battled it out last year. Stark County ended up going undefeated, but they were right there. And I think those teams will be in the mix, but there's a few other teams I think that we need to keep our eye on. One of those teams, Princeville. Head coach John Carruthers back again this year. They were 5-5 a year ago. They lost to Stark County in the first round of the playoffs. Mitch, I heard this story the other day, and it was too good to not include on the podcast. So, head coach John Carruthers and Jade Nord met on the field at the end of, in the first round of the playoffs, but that wasn't the last time they saw each other. They ran into each other in the offseason. So get this. Jade Nord driving through Peoria when his car died. First person he thought to call for a jump, John Carruthers from Princeville. And he said on the phone call how many coaches called their rival school's head coach for a jump start. So there you go. The rivalry runs deep, but hey, it's, at the end of the day, we're all friends.
Leave it on the field. Yeah, leave it on the field. That's great. That's a great story. Yeah, so, Princeville, I mean, Princeville's always that perennial hovering around 500 team, right? They were 4-5 2 years ago. They get a 5-4 and get into the playoffs last year. So they're always just battling. They're a team that wins close. Looking at their season last year, I guess I don't want to say that they win close all the time, but they certainly just hang around. Whether they win the game or they lose the game, they're always just it's never a blowout. So they're always a team you got to watch out for. And I think they're going to be the same way. Admittedly, it's hard for us sometimes to get our info from Princeville. If you're listening, hit us up every now and again. But looking at their schedule, if they're going to do it, they got to do it early, because they finish with Stark County, Rushville Industry, and Anawan Wethersfield. So if they're going to get into that playoffs again, you might want to secure those 5 wins in the first 6 weeks.
Yeah. Now I should clarify on that story. I mean, Coach Nord never followed up with if Coach Carruthers showed up to help him.
That's true. That's true.
He just said he made the call. So
right. Those are important details. Those are important details that we'll leave unfinished, because we like to think about it.
Yeah. So, I think that Princeville is one of those teams to watch, because, they got into the playoffs a year ago. They have some weapons from that team that are back this year, ready to make an impact. They played players that played well in that playoff game against Stark County. I think, they're back and they're motivated to, push past that 5-win mark, see how good they can be, in this division. It's a team to watch for sure. another team, Mitch, I'm keeping my eye on, Rushville Industry. The Rockets head coach Brian Lafferty a year ago was 3-6. But this year, it just seems like there's a lot of excitement, a lot of motivation around this Rocket program. I got to give a shout out to Chris Dewar from KHQA. He went down there and did a season preview, his barnstorming tour. Do you follow him on Twitter? Of course.
Yeah.
Everybody follows him on Twitter.
All the preseason stuff is just tremendous.
But I love that he calls it his barnstorming tour, and he takes to the streets and he gets out there to the, to here, there, and everywhere. I love following his coverage. So he went to Rushville Industry, caught up with Coach Lafferty and that team. I think they're a team that is, one to watch for, because hearing from other coaches around the league, around the division, that they have a great group of underclassmen that had a lot of success at the lower levels. So as that group grows up and hits the varsity level, they were 3-6 a year ago, but I think there's a lot of returners coming back to add into a younger group that was really talented and had a lot of success. Here you go. That's a possible recipe for a team making their way up the standings.
Yeah, and this is a team that I think it's lost a little bit. I mean, they've made the playoffs 6 times in the last decade, and one of those years was the COVID year where there was no playoffs, and they went undefeated that spring. So they only played 3 games, but this is a team getting a little bit of a lackluster year last year. But like you said, there's a lot of excitement here with the Rockets. When you got Jordan McGinnis and Rylan Reimholtz, I remember his name from last year.
Yep.
Just a great group of kids. Coach said that last year maybe they didn't have that home run threat, but they think they have those guys this year. It should be a fast team. So, yeah, Rushville Industry could be that sneaky pick that could disrupt some things here this year. Looking forward to seeing them on the field.
Like I said, I watched Chris Dewar's preview, and man, you could see that speed in practice. They're just running some drills and running some offense that they were, that he caught on camera. You could see that speed. The handoffs, and these guys were gone. They were hitting holes and they were running. So I am curious to see, how it plays out for them. We'll talk about matchups down the way, but they have an interesting matchup in week 1 against Stark County. Yeah. So there you go. I think, we could learn something from that week 1 matchup. And then week 2, they're also at home against United. So 2 home games to start their season. That could go a long way in, how their season goes.
Yeah, especially going on the road in week 3 to Annawan Wethersfield. So yeah, they get 2 of their harder games out of the way early, and that could be good. I'm not saying that they'll lose those games at all, but you get those 2 of the top teams in the conference in the first 3 weeks, then you have 6 weeks to really, depending on how that goes, you have 6 weeks then to really make your run, and I think they're set up good for that.
This episode of View from the West podcast is brought to you by Simulation Sports. In addition to golf simulators and batting cages, Simulation Sports provides golf club repair, custom fittings for driver shafts, and even private lessons for golf, baseball, and softball. Whether you're looking for a fun group activity or want to fine-tune your skills and equipment, Simulation Sports has something for everyone. Visit their facility at 400 South Main Street in Monmouth, Illinois, or go to thesimulationsports.com to start playing today.
Shouldn't financial advice focus on you? I can help you plan for your financial future, from protection to saving to retirement. I'm Nate Neighbor, your Modern Woodman representative. Call me at 309-233-2656 or find me on the Modern Woodman website.
Get to know your local Modern Woodman representative to plan for your financial future and learn about valuable member benefits. Modern Woodman of America. Touching lives, securing futures. Securities offered through MWA Financial Services, Inc., a wholly owned subsidiary of Modern Woodman of America.
View from the West podcast is also sponsored by the Cupcake Cartel. Gourmet cupcakes that are made to order. Over 40 flavors, including wedding cake, lemon blueberry, strawberry milkshake, snickerdoodle, and Oreo. Perfect for weddings, birthdays, showers, fundraisers, or any event. You can find the Cupcake Cartel on Facebook. We thank them for their support. All right, well, we just referenced a minute ago Annawan Wethersfield. They will play Rushville Industry in week 3. Let's talk about the Titans. Annawan Wethersfield head coach Tony Grip back again on the sidelines for the Titans. They were 10-2 a year ago, advancing to the state quarterfinals. They got a big win in a great game over Morrison, I believe, in the second round. So a nice win for that program against a very good Morrison team. Returning starters, 7 on offense, 6 on defense. Mitch, he was our player of the year in the conference on this side a year ago. Zeb Rashid, he was a first-team All-Stater, running back, linebacker. In front of him, they returned the offensive line. 5 players that had significant playing time are back again from that team. Nick Thurston at running back. You also have Dylan Kettleson at tight end. So a lot of weapons here on the offensive side of the ball. And it none more impressive than Zeb Rashid. We talked about him a lot last year. We talked about him 2 years ago. Here we go, his senior year.
Yeah, his senior year with a very, very experienced offensive line could make for some long nights for some teams here in the Lincolnland. What I'm looking forward to with this team is their defense. Their defense was tough last year. This was a group that put up 4 shutouts and 4 straight games towards the end of the year, only allowing 6 points. One of the best defenses that we cover. So yeah, they've got all the makeup to put points on the board, but I think that it's going to be really, really tough to score on this group once again this year. And I think, not to tip my hand because we'll get to this at the end, one of my favorites to be conference champion at the end of the year.
All right, there you go. Well, let's talk about the names on defense. Brody Childs, a linebacker, 100+ tackles a year ago. I think every year Anawan Wethersfield has somebody going for like 100+ tackles. It seems like we're always talking about that. So once again, Brody Childs is back. Wyatt DeSplinter at linebacker, Riley Rumbold at linebacker, and Cohen DeClerc also as a defensive back. So yeah, a lot of things to like about this team. Coach Grip referenced
an all-name team there.
I thought the same thing.
Love that.
Riley Rumbold.
Wyatt DeSplinter? Yeah. You ain't getting past Wyatt DeSplinter. Are you kidding me? No chance.
I actually, same thing popped in my head. Like, these are good names. All right, there you go.
Yeah.
So Coach Grip talked about, obviously, with an all-state running back and the line play, that running game, that ground game is going to be there. He talked about, really pushing the ball vertically, trying to get that passing game established. So it'll be interesting to see who steps in at quarterback for them and where, if they can do that. Because, man, if you can add that threat to this offense, you really, as a defense, you really have a lot to pay attention to. So, All right. Well, a few more teams here. Let's talk about South Fulton. Josh Miller, 3-6 a year ago for them. So they'll be looking to jump in and climb those standings. They open the season on the road at Anawan Wethersfield. So tough battle for them in week 1. They then return home to Abingdon Avon and down the list. The next day in week 3, they go on the road and play Havana. That's the team we're talking about next. Colton Hammond, 0-9 a year ago. So certainly has some work to do there for the Havana Ducks, a program that's been a little bit down over the last few seasons. They open on the road at Roval Williamsfield. So between both South Fulton and Havana, tough games to start their season. They'll have to learn quickly, and they'll have to earn wins early in the season, if they want to climb up the standings. But a team we just referenced, Roval Williamsfield, they're back again this year. Grant Goldstrand had that team at 9-3 a year ago. They beat Newman in the playoffs, and they beat Stark County before falling to Hope. They return 5 on offense, 4 on defense. This is a team, Mitch, you already talked about it. This is a team that we're excited about again this year.
Yeah, I think they'll look a little different. Obviously, they had a great passing attack last year with Riley Danner, but even with him not around anymore, you still have Talon Hall coming back. 37 catches, 738 yards, 4 touchdowns last year. He's an exciting player. Great on defense, too.
Yep, I was just going to say, he's a one to watch for sure.
I think we have him down for 4 interceptions and 2 defensive touchdowns last year. So, yeah, he's one of the more dynamic players in the conference. But I like what they bring back at the line. Jackson Strom, a guy with 19 pancakes last year. You've got Caden Saunders returning left guard. You've got Aiden Saunders returning right guard. So whoever is going to fill in that quarterback position here for Roval Williamsfield, going to be well protected, going to have weapons. And yeah, this should be a fun season. It could look a little different, but it should be a lot of fun.
19 pancakes. That's breakfast at the Armstrong house right there.
Oh, that's a zinger. That's a good one.
All right. So Mitch, like you mentioned, some names we recognize for this Roval Williamsfield offense, but they do have some positions to fill. One of the question marks heading into the season is at quarterback. In the preseason form, head coach Grant Goldstrand said that there was, a competition right now in the offseason in the summer between Preston Schroeder and Drake DeJanis as far as who would take over at the quarterback position. So today, before we hit record, I thought, I'll reach out to Coach Goldstrand and ask him about that. So I sent him a text message and said, hey, the two players you referenced working towards being the starting quarterback, has that been settled yet? He responded with, yes, one of them will be the starter. So that's
love those odds.
Yeah, there's some breaking news for you. One of them will be the starter. So thanks, Coach. Appreciate that.
Roval Williamsfield will 100% have a quarterback.
yeah, exactly.
That's what we know.
Exactly. So watch for one of those names to step in there. And on the defensive side of the ball, Preston Schroeder had 41 solo tackles a year ago, 6 tackles for loss. He's back again. Talon Hull, which we referenced, 40 tackles. He also, like we said, a blocked punt, fumble recovery, 4 interceptions, 2 defensive touchdowns. Jack Cordell, also 24 tackles. He's back. Max Main is also back, 29 solo tackles, 6 tackles for loss. Mitch, tell us about Max Main. What a great story.
Oh, Max Main. Yeah. Started a few games at left guard, but it started everything at inside linebacker last year. Greg, he's in South Carolina right now. He's at Army Basic Training. He is scheduled to miss a few practices this month. Maybe that's already passed, but he'll be back in time to get enough practices to play here in week 1. It's not only the commitment to that and his future, but he's also a huge part of the marching band there at Roval Williamsfield. So this is a versatile guy, an all-American type of kid. Love to see that. He's been practicing music. He's been at Army Basic Training. He's trying to get ready for the football season. So, I mean, to say that the coaches and the community are beyond proud of Max Main is an understatement. So, looking forward to seeing him on the field, and we wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, awesome. Great story. And that, man, basic training, that seems hard in itself, plus trying to get ready for football and band. And
the band, yeah.
He's
awesome. Got a full plate.
Great stuff there. So, all right, let's keep moving along. Abingdon Avon, A-Town, head coach Rick Quinn had the Tornadoes at 2-7 a year ago, but they got some numbers returning. 7 on offense. He says they returned 4 on defense, but they have 2 more that'll be on defense that were injured for the entirety of last season. So guys that were there a year ago or 2 years ago that are ready to jump back in. So some names that return here, plenty on the offensive line. Aiden Stromson, Aiden Boone, Cole Scheckler, Bryson Harn, all listed as linemen. Behind them, I should say, Dre Anderson at quarterback, Jacob Hall at wide receiver, Evan Hook at wide receiver. On the defensive side of the ball, some of those same names, Boone, Hook, Jacob Hall. So some names here, but a team that's certainly looking to bounce back after a 2-7 season here.
Yeah, this was a team that despite losing a handful of starters for the season, they held their own on the defensive side of the ball. They just need to be more consistent scoring. So, I think with what they've got coming back, a 2-7 season year before, they were 1-8 the year before that. But I think with what they've got coming back, maybe some momentum, if they can stay healthy. Obviously, it's a big deal for every team, but with A-Town losing 3 starters last year, even before the season got started, really put them in a hole early. So stay healthy. You've got the line to do it, and see if they can't get a couple more of these games that were losses in years past, get them in the win column. I think they've got plenty of players to do it if they stay healthy.
Yep. So head coach Rick Quinn referenced important for them to get off to a fast start, gain some confidence early in the season. They have Princeville at home in week 1. They go on the road to South Fulton in week 2, and then they're at home again against Stark County. So I do think at least in those first 2 weeks, there's some opportunity there. Princeville and then on the road at South Fulton. Can you come away with, man, 2-0, you'd be elated. If you went 1-1 there, headed into a matchup at home against Stark County, I think you'd feel okay with that if you're head coach Rick Quinn. I think ultimately for him, health, just staying healthy. Like you referenced, last year they were really bit by the injury bug, and that hurt them from the very beginning, from the start of the season. So if they can stay healthy this year, maybe get a little more consistency on offense, take some pressure off the defense and off the special teams, I think that's a key for this A-Town team. All right, Mitch, should we go through some games to watch on the season? Some games that stand out to us here. Where do you want to start?
There's some obvious picks that I think we already kind of referenced, so I'm going to stay away from that for the moment. I am going to stick with Annawan Wethersfield, but their week 7 game on the road, cross Prairie Land to Farmington. I think that's a game that will be 2 of my favorites to win their respective sides going at it.
Yep.
Love to see how they stack up against one another. 2 very, very physical teams. Outside of that, again, we talked about that week 2 matchup between Stark County and Annawan Wethersfield. You've got Annawan Wethersfield and Roval Williamsfield in week 8. Looking around at teams that are not those 3, we talked a lot about Rushville Industry and what we think that they could do this year. They've got Stark County and Annawan Wethersfield in their first 3 weeks. So I want to see how they stack up in those 2 games. And I think we said it in the preview. Then they've got 6 weeks to really figure it out. And it's favorable to get back into the winning column if they don't those first 3 weeks. But I want to see how they stack up, and they'll get that chance to early on.
How about Rushville Industry hosting Princeville in week 8?
Yeah.
That could be huge.
That's a good one.
Yep. That could be a huge matchup there. Yeah, I think you nailed it. That was one of the games that stood out to me. Another one that's, I think, just intriguing. We'll talk about Bureau Valley in a few minutes here, but they go on the road to United to start their new look Lincolnland schedule. And that's just an intriguing one from 2 schools we've, covered a lot, over the years, and they haven't met up on the football field very often. So I think that's an intriguing one to see where they, how they start out. All right. Is it time to make picks, Mitch? Are you ready to make a pick?
I am ready to make my pick, Greg. It shouldn't be a surprise based on my comments, but I think with just what this team has coming back on both sides of the ball, the experience that they've had the past couple of years getting into the playoffs, I think this will be the year that Annawan Wethersfield takes the crown. Again, we talked about their players and everything that they have coming back with Zeb Rashid, all of those all-name players on defense, a very experienced line. Figure out the quarterback situation, maybe add a little bit of a pass dynamic to your offense, but really, do you need to? I mean, with Zeb Rashid running the ball, but I do think that this is a year that they finally break free and win the crown.
I'm right there with you. I think this team is built to win this conference. I think they're a very good football team. I'm going Annawan Wethersfield to win it, but like almost every conversation we've had when making picks, I think maybe the more intriguing conversation is who finishes second. Mitch, you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
You take this one.
All right. I was hoping you wouldn't say that, because I was still kind of debating in my head, because no matter what I say, somebody's not going to like what I say.
Yeah.
I think when you start looking around in second place, we talked a lot about Rushville Industry. We obviously have talked a lot about Roval Williamsfield and Stark County based on what they have and what they did last year. And again, can't make everybody happy when you make picks. I'm going Stark County finishing second place in the division.
Okay. Yeah, I think it is between Stark County and Royal Williams Field. I am intrigued by Rushville Industry. They could certainly jump way up. Just need to kind of see it first. I will go Royal Williams Field here. New quarterback, but I like what they bring back on defense. I like what they bring back on the line, especially they have weapons to make up for any, deficiencies that they might be or losing or having to replace. But yeah, whoever that quarterback is, whether it's Preston Schroeder or Drake DeJanis, going to have weapons, going to have a line to protect them, and they got a defense that's going to back them up. So I'll say that Royal Williams Field will be the runner-up this year.
All right, so there you go. See, you're making Roval Williams Field people happy here, right? Right early in the season.
Cougs.
Look at you.
My Cougs.
All right, well, there we go. Picks are in. That's your look at the small school division of the Lincolnland Conference. We'll take a quick break. We'll jump in. We got a guest appearance on this episode, Mitch. We're going to hear from Matt Shuckman from Muddy River Sports. He'll weigh in, give his thoughts, his insights on Macomb, Illini West, and West Hancock. And then we'll jump in and talk about the division and, of course, look at games to watch and make our picks at the end. So stick around. We'll be right back. The View from the West Player of the Week is brought to you by Breedlove Sporting Goods, Western Illinois' premier sporting goods store for uniforms, apparel, equipment, awards, and online team stores. They offer name brands such as Adidas, Under Armour, and Nike, and are extremely responsive with any inquiries. With a primary focus on the western side of the state of Illinois, Breedlove Sporting Goods is the fastest way to outfit your team. You can check them out on Facebook or at breedlovesports.com or shoot Cal Breedlove an email at calbreedlove@gmail.com.
This is Dan Pearson of Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Our FCA team of staff, board, and volunteers is pleased to support View from the West with Greg and Mitch. Our Northwest Illinois FCA team is 3 teams in 1, serving coaches and athletes in the Three Rivers, Northern Illinois, and Greater Peoria areas, all with schools covered by View from the West. For more information, email me at danpearson@fca.org. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
The Quad City's first and only fantasy football show, For Fantasy's Sake, has you all covered when it comes to all of your fantasy football needs. The guys come to you live every Sunday morning during the football season from 10 to 11:30. They've got the best analysis, rankings, DFS, and gambling advice between the Rock and Mississippi Rivers. So tune into For Fantasy's Sake every Sunday during the football season from 10 to 11:30 a.m. on Facebook and YouTube.
Hey, this is Brett Bielma, the head coach of the Fighting Illini from Prophetstown, Illinois. You're listening to the View from the West podcast.
Welcome back to the show. We're talking the Lincolnland Conference. Now we're moving to the large division side of things. And if we're talking Lincolnland Conference, we got some Prairie Land schools that they're headed down towards the Quincy way. So you know what that means. We're going to call in a favor for the second week in a row. Matt Shuckman from Muddy River Sports is here. Shuck, welcome back to View from the West. We're giving Mitch a little break here for a second. We're calling in, getting your info and getting your insights.
You went to the big righty out of the bullpen and said, brought me in to be the closer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll get into your schools from down your way: Macomb, Illini West, West Hancock. Let's start with Macomb. The Bombers a year ago, Tanner Horrell led them to a 4-5 record. But as we've talked about, they had a really good program a couple years ago. I believe they went 10-0 before falling in the playoffs. They lost a lot from that squad. So maybe last year was a bit of a work in progress, but they got a lot of guys back here. And this could be back on the upswing for Macomb.
There's no doubt about it. They had, I know it was 2 Division I athletes off that team from 2 years ago. One of them, Ethan Ladd, went on and is now a linebacker at Western Illinois University. And that quarterback off that team, Jack Duncan, is pitching for the WIU baseball team. So they had some really good athletes on that team that went 9-0, beat Quincy Notre Dame in the first round of the playoffs, and then lost to Murfreesboro in the second round. Now, with all that said, they lost a whole bunch of guys off that team. So last year was, like you said, a work in progress. And I thought Braden Holthouse made great strides at quarterback, taking over for Jack Duncan. You had some guys on the outside, Drew Watson and I believe it's Connor Bishop. I think it's Connor.
Yeah,
He's gonna get mad at me if I got his name wrong, but that's okay. But you know, they had two. They had one tight end in Ian Case, and then Deion Doyle, another. They had 2 6'4" targets in there. They don't have those guys. Those guys both graduated, but I think Braden Holdhouse understands the offense. I think it was 22 touchdown passes against 3 interceptions last year. Just really accurate with the ball. He's got guys around him. The offensive line's a year older, you know, so I really like that. And then they played a lot of young guys on defense. They started a freshman at middle linebacker who led them in tackles. I think it was 95 tackles on the season.
Well, I got a name here. I believe a sophomore linebacker, Drake May.
Drake May, that's what I'm talking about.
Coach said he had 104 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and a sack. So, his clearly a leader on defense.
Yeah, his older brother, Lindsey, was a heck of a football player, and then he's kind of come in and, I mean, really established himself as a freshman to come in and play the middle of the defense as a true freshman. Wow, pretty impressive.
So a few other names on the defensive side of the ball: Brennan Bolt, Alex Brown, Drew Watson, and Jack Beal. Also a couple names there in Watson and Beal to watch for as wide receivers on the offensive side.
I said Bishop earlier. I meant Beal.
There you go. Okay.
But Beal, you know, I know he had, I believe it was 2 interceptions against West Hancock last year in a game that was delayed by weather, and they ended up completing and winning, like I believe 40-30. But Beal and Watson made big plays as the year went on. You know, and you gotta respect the fact that they took a program. Tanner Horrell did a program he played in when his dad was a coordinator in that. You know, Steve Horrell, who's now the athletic director, and Tanner has made it his own program. You know, and he elevated it to a playoff contender. 4 wins last year, coming off of all their losses. And they were a smidge away from making the playoffs last year. So, you know, again, I see this as a team that's playoff bound this year with all the experience they have. All those young kids have that extra year of experience. And it's a program that I think if you talk about this league year in, year out, you're going to talk about them being a contender.
Yeah, certainly a team that I'm interested to watch this year, see how things play out for them in this Lincolnland large school side. Let's keep moving down the way to Illini West. Similar story for the Chargers. They were 4-5 a year ago. Jacob Calvin now in his 2nd season here. What do you see? They return 8 on offense, 8 on defense. So a lot of guys coming back here. What do you see from the Chargers that you like?
A lot of guys that got to play a lot of minutes last year. And to me, that's the big thing. You've got some depth because of that. You've got guys with experience. They have to replace some key guys. And Ian Bensinger, who was a starting running back last year, went on and won, you know, was one of the top sprinters in the state in the 100 and 200 in Class 1A last year. So you got some pieces you've got to replace there. But, you know, like we talked about with that program so many times over the years, whether it was Illini West or Carthage, they just reload. And they, you know, and it's a program that churns out guys year after year. Jacob Calvin I thought did a really good job of stepping into a tough situation last year in his first year as head coach and kind of keeping that program on course. I know they didn't get to the playoffs, but they went 4-5. They showed improvement week in and week out. And I think, so this is, I think, the breakthrough year for him as a head coach in year 2, but also that kind of, okay, we're back. We're Illini West. We're back in the playoff picture, you know, and when you have that much experience coming back and that kind of depth, you expect to be good.
Yeah. So some of the names to watch for here for the Chargers: Nick Johnson at running back, Isaiah Knotts, a junior at running back, Steven Sparks is a wide receiver, Max Kinneman at quarterback. He also thinks that Ethan Carlisle will be fighting for that quarterback position. Depending on how it goes, he could play quarterback or move into Carlisle, could move into a running back position. So either way, there's some depth there. There's some, you know, athletes that are going to move around the field.
And those guys know how to win. And when I say that is, a lot of those guys were part of the baseball team that made it to the sectional championship game and lost to Peoria Notre Dame. But they won 28 games, I believe the second most wins in Illini West baseball history in a single season. Carlisle was one of the 2 aces on that team. Max Kinneman was a big part of that team. You know, so they've got guys that know how to win, guys that know how to compete. And I think that's huge for Illini West. They're not just plugging in guys. They're putting guys out there who have that fire and understand what it takes to get the job done.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of guys here that have had real experience, like there's a little bit of depth and there's just a lot of, experienced football players coming back. So I think, two teams in Macomb and Illini West, both that were 4-5 a year ago. But I think, man, they're positioned to make a move here and, see where these standings kind of shake out. It'll be interesting to follow. One more team from your neck of the woods here, Shuck. We got West Hancock. Coy Dorothy, I believe this is second season now, leading the team down there. They were 1-8 a year ago, but I think there's some potential here for this to continue to grow.
Yes, I totally agree with that. We saw a lot of good things happen for them last year. The way they moved the ball offensively, the way they got up and down the field. Now defensively, they've got to get better. That was their bugaboo last year. They gave up too much, but they also. The interesting thing is they lost their quarterback, Gavin Grotehouse, who threw for over 2,000 yards last year, decided he's done with football. He's going to concentrate on basketball. So what do? You take your record-setting wide receiver and move him to quarterback and Bryce Varner.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing of why is, and Coach Dorothy called him cerebral. He's a 4.0 student. He understands the game, high football IQ, and that's why he felt he could move him to quarterback. You're taking away a great wide receiver, but maybe he'll be a great quarterback because he understands the game.
Seems like they have a lot of wide receivers. They have a lot of talent there. Nolan Gooding is back, 730 yards a year ago, 5 touchdowns. Braxton Scott and Ryan Horn will be on the offensive line, but then you also have Gunnar Grotehouse and Hunter Foreman as wide receivers as well. So a couple athletes there for Varner to throw to. I like what, the way you describe Varner. I think that's a great fit for a quarterback in Dorothy's system who can kind of know the game, control the game, and really do what they want to do on offense. Cause it's a very high powered offense, which we saw.
And what I want to see is I want to see Bryce Varner just throw the ball up for grabs and Nolan Gooding go get it.
Yeah.
Because Nolan Gooding was a state medalist in the triple jump in track last spring. The dude's got springs. And so I think, not only is he quick, but he can go get the ball. And I think in some circumstances, sometimes you just got to do that. Sometimes you got to go, okay, run this route. I'm going to throw the ball up there. You go make a play on the ball and get it done. Yeah. And Nolan Gooding's a kid you can say that to, and he'll go do it.
Awesome. Yeah. And we saw that last year. You felt like there were highlights like that were going to happen for him. So Gooding will also be on the defensive side of the ball at corner. Chandler Dadent at linebacker. Bryce Varner will be a corner on the defensive side of the ball. Ryder Duffy at defensive end, and Cole Furtado as a linebacker. So they'll have to improve defensively, like you mentioned.
Yes.
But overall, Coach Dorothy just talked about the strengths heading into this year is that, again, a second-year head coach getting his system established, getting the schemes in place, and getting the players to fully understand it all. 1 year in now, I think you're in a much better spot than kids trying to learn on the fly early in his first season. So he talks a lot about being able to improve offensively and defensively that way. Kids knowing terminology, being able to get ready, from week one, ready to go, fully understanding, fully bought in. So he says they've had great turnout, great attendance over the summer. So that's huge for a team looking to turn it around, to build those bonds early in the summer.
I remember stopping by one of their summer workouts a year ago, and you had a handful of kids who were coaching on the field because they knew what was expected. They understood the game, but it was only a handful. This year, that handful has grown into 2 or plus handfuls of kids who are kind of coaching everybody else, coaching the younger kids, because they understand the terminology. They understand the expectations. They understand what needs to take place for success. And I know they didn't win as many games last year as they would have liked, but they were in games. And I think you got to be in games, and then you got to learn to win those games. And then you can go become a playoff team.
Yep. I think this 3 teams that we just talked about here be really interesting to follow. So Chuck, I want to thank you for stopping in and, weighing in, providing some insights for the teams down in your area. We'll be talking this season for sure about these teams and that, that Quincy team. They might be pretty good and worth talking about too.
We'll see. We might touch on them a time or two this year, but I really appreciate you having me on. And, I got to get some View from the West swag at some point. So
I love it.
I got to hit up the merchandise.
All right, do it. Yeah, for sure. Go check it out on our Breed Loves online store, and it's fun. I'm excited to get it out there.
Good.
So
You guys do a heck of a job, and you deserve all that. And I hope I can be a guest again sometime.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. So we'll see you down the road for sure.
Sounds great.
So thank you so much to Matt Schuckman for jumping on, giving his insights, his analysis. He's been talking to these teams. He's been out at practices. He's got previews rolling already for Muddy River Sports. Mitch, did you hear that Muddy River Sports is starting a Friday night show, Muddy Night Lights, on Friday nights?
Yes, I did hear that. Love to hear that. Love to see that. We'll definitely be tuning into that. And if we're not on an Instant Reacts, maybe we'll get to be a part of that show. That'd be fun. So yeah, great for that coverage to expand, and who better to do it than Schuckman and the boys. So that'll be fun.
All right. Well, Mitch, we heard from Matt Schuckman. We kind of broke down Macomb, Illini West, and West Hancock. We'll talk through them a little bit, get your thoughts. Let's start with Macomb. Tanner Horrell and the Bombers were 4-5 a year ago, but they have a wealth of talent returning, 7 on offense, 9 on defense. What do you see out of this Macomb team that interests you, Mitch?
Yeah, I think this is a team that's going to get back to it. If you remember, Greg, 2 years ago, they were undefeated in the regular season. Yep. I think that was the first time they had done that in like a really long time. And then if memory serves me right, last year they were like 3-0 or 4-0 before they had some tragedy in that community. Derailed things a little bit maybe on the field, but in the end, I think what you just said, 7 on offense, 9 on defense coming back. You've got Braden Holthouse coming back. He can sling the ball, 22 interceptions. That wouldn't be great. 22 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. He'd play for Northwestern if he had stats like that, Greg.
That's a
1,600 yards. 1,600 yards, and he can also run the ball a little bit. 4 touchdowns on the ground. He's got some weapons in Drew Watson and Jack Beal. Again, didn't have the season they wanted to last year. I think there were circumstances surrounding that. But the year before, again, an undefeated Macomb team. Really, really like Macomb to have a great year and get back into the playoffs this year.
Yeah, absolutely. They're a team that's very intriguing to me. Another team I'm watching for in a similar boat, the Illini West Chargers, 4-5 a year ago. Head coach Jacob Calvin is back for his second year. And hey, stop me if I've already said this. They also return some talent. 8 on offense, 8 on defense. A lot to like here too. We heard it from Schuckman, but what do you see about this Charger program?
Again, we said it about a couple teams here, but man, their line, it's their line on both sides of the ball. I think it's going to be a huge strength. I think Coach Calvin's agreed with that too. You've got some great athletes. You've got 2 guys, Max Kinneman, who we talked about last year. You've got Ethan Carlisle, a junior, coming in, who's a versatile athlete, trying to get some snaps there. Maybe we'll see some versatility between those 2 players. Carlisle can play in multiple positions, so he'll definitely be on the field. But boy, there's a lot of great things to like about Illini West this year once again. They're going to be one of those teams that when we start making predictions, I'm going to have to factor them in, because I think they'll be right there. I think they'll get back to the playoffs this year too.
Yeah. So we talked about the returners they have on offense and on defense. How about on the defensive side of the ball? Last year, Coach Sid Hulls, who played for the Carthage Blue Boys, brought back an old tradition from when he was playing. You ready for this story, Mitch? So the player with the best hit in a practice in a game gets a bone, like a real bone. Coach Hulls brought a real cow bone from his farm and painted it. So the winner each week gets the bone. They get to sign it and they keep it in their locker for the week. At the end of the year, the coaches decide on which one of those hits was the best of the year, and the player keeps the bone. So there you go.
That would make for an incredible sideline celebration, like a turnover chain. No, it's a cow bone. It'd be awesome.
Cow bone.
But hey, traditions like that just prove or show you why the Carthage Blue Boys were so good back in the day. They were sacrificing cows for big hits. I mean, come on.
There you go.
Goodness gracious.
All right, one more team to talk about from Matt Schuckman's coverage area. West Hancock. Coy Dorothy a year ago was 1-8, but they returned 5 on offense, 6 on defense. This was a team, Mitch, that we were really intrigued by. Now they put up a ton of points. They gave up some points too. They put up a ton of passing yards on offense. Interesting to watch and to see maybe as these kids continue to learn the system under Coach Dorothy, how they can continue to improve and maybe add to that win total.
Yeah, this is an intriguing thing. Really like Nolan Gooding on both sides of the ball. He's a big time receiver, big time cornerback. They're going to have to figure some things out. The quarterback from last year isn't coming out this year, focusing on basketball, threw for a lot of yards. But hey, maybe switching that up a little bit, or even if it's just not switching their identity, but getting new personnel in there. Maybe it's Bryce Varner who steps in there. He was a school record holder for reception touchdowns last year, but he might be stepping in and throwing the ball. So, West Hancock is a team that didn't, again, a lot of great flashes last year. But this team, I think for them to be able to get their schemes down on both sides of the ball will help a lot. And again, see if they've got great turnout for their summer workouts. The team has really bought in. So new personnel here for West Hancock, but Coy Dorothy's a great coach. And again, they've got some returning back. Maybe they can make some noise. Yeah,
I think so. Gavin Grothaus is out at quarterback, like you said, focusing on basketball. Wish him the best of luck. I hope that he, finds, scholarship playing at the next level in basketball would be exciting. But it's interesting to hear Coach Dorothy talk about, I read it in Matt Schuckman's article about the team, the preview, that the reason Bryce Varner is stepping in at quarterback and making that move, the reason he was picked was because he's a smart kid and can really, take what coaches give him, absorb it, know it right away, hear it one time and learn it and go, So I think when you have that sort of knowledge at quarterback in a system like this, that could be very valuable, right? A kid that's, ready to have that knowledge, poise, and along with athleticism, obviously. And, so I think in this system, I think that could be really interesting to watch for. I think just overall, just this team continuing to build their comfort in what Coach Dorothy wants to do on both offense and defense. They're going to have to improve on defense if they want to get some wins. But man, the offense, the passing offense is certainly there. It's a team that's just fun to watch.
Yeah, no question. They open up the year on the road at Deer Creek Mackinac, a perennial playoff team. So that'll be a fun matchup there in week 1. Doesn't get any easier. They host Farmington in week 2.
Yeah, tough start. Yeah, that'll be a couple tough games to start the year. See how things shake out for them. Let's keep moving down the way. Knoxville, the Blue Bullets, Ryan Hebard had that team at 7-3 overall a year ago. They also returned 5 on offense, 5 on defense. Players to watch, some names we're familiar with: Nolan McClay at running back, Bo Laws at running back, Trenton Kiergan at offensive line, Jacob Thorpe also on the line, Cole McGrath on the defensive side of the ball, also Laws and McClay are there. Overall, Coach Hebard believes this team in 2024 has better team speed and strength. So that's quite a statement, because this team was pretty fast and pretty strong a year ago. So that's, that's impressive to hear.
Yeah, we always love what the Blue Bullets put on the field. So to have those returning starters like McClay, like Bo Laws, I think we'll see a lot of the typical Knoxville offense back again this year. It should be noted, Greg, I don't think we said it here on this large side. They do play a non-conference game.
Yes, they do. Yep.
We just talked about West Hancock playing Deer Creek Mackinac. Knoxville plays Fulton again this year, so that'll be a fun matchup in week 8. Could have playoff implications there. We started with Illini West. They play Tuscola. That's a fun game at the end of week 9. So yeah, all of these we'll go through and we'll name it. Macomb's out of conference game is Breeze Matter Day, so no slouch there. So yeah, just without I don't think we mentioned it, that they do play an out-of-conference game.
Yeah.
But for Knoxville looking for, if coach says they are bigger and faster than they were last year, that's a scary thought because they are pretty good.
Yep. And they were right there competing for the top of that conference division a year ago. I think they'll be there again. I really have been impressed with McClay and what he can do in that Knoxville system, right? Run, touchdown, repeat, like we referenced.
Yeah.
I think that's
Exactly.
That's what Knoxville does. They do it really well. So, we go from an established member of the conference, a team that does it really well, to a newcomer in the conference, Bureau Valley. They're looking to show what they can do in the Lincoln land on this large side of things. Head coach Matt Pistol brings the Storm into the conference. They were 4-5 a year ago, but they also returned 5 on offense, 6 on defense. A few names we definitely recognize, names that we were impressed with a year ago. Bryce Helms will be a 3-year starter at quarterback, 900 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, 450 yards rushing, and 5 touchdowns. So really impressive resume for him. But also Elijah Endress, a 3-year starter, returning first team all conference running back. He had over 1,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, plus 250 yards receiving. Brady Hart's an athlete the coach talked a lot about last year, is back again. You have Blake Foster at wide receiver and Brayson Patno returning as an honorable mention offensive lineman. So some names there. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. Mitch, this Bureau Valley Storm team, took that step last year. They didn't quite make the playoffs, but they were right in it till week 8 and week 9.
Yeah, I was really, really impressed with the jump that they made last year. And it was thanks due in part to a ton of names. But as you mentioned, Helms and Endress, kind of the 2 anchors there. So 2 3-year starters, really excited to see them coming back. I think this is going to be big for Bureau Valley to have that sort of experience and returning players when you're going into this challenge of a bigger conference. I don't quite know what to make of their season outlook. I was thinking about this earlier. If this Bureau Valley roster was playing in the track this year, I would absolutely love the idea of them getting back into the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
Playing the schedule that they do now this year with again, some unknowns, because we just don't know how they're going to match up with some of these bigger schools. I don't know if that's necessarily the same thing. That's not a knock on Bureau Valley, because again, I really like what they have this year, and I think they're going to be a great team. It's just the fact that they have a lot of competition that they've never faced before. They've got a tough out-of-conference game in week 2. So I am very, very intrigued by Bureau Valley this year. And I think, again, in order to overcome those challenges, you got to have experienced players. Bureau Valley certainly has that. So I'll happily eat crow if they get through this schedule. I just think if this team was playing in the track this year, it'd be a heck of a season for Bureau Valley.
Yeah, I think there's several toss-up games, right? I think there's games that they can win. I think there's several games that will be a challenge for them, but I think right there in the middle, there's several toss-up games, and I think that obviously will determine where this season ends up. What you got to love, though, is the 3-year starter at quarterback, 3-year starter at running back, the talent that Brady Hart's has coming back. I just think there's a lot of experience. They're battle-tested, right? This team has gone up against Princeton. They've gone up against Kewanee. Like, they're battle tested in the 3 Rivers. And I'm not going to get into that debate again, but it's
right.
going to match up against some very good teams here in the Prairie Land and the Lincoln Trail as well. So
yeah, I think just looking at their schedule, Bureau Valley is going to be sitting in that 4 or 5 win mark, right?
Okay.
Can they win I think that's automatic. I think they have 4 automatic wins. I think they'll pick up a 5th. And I think the big question will be, like you said, is there a toss-up game there that they can win? So I'm I don't want to paint the picture so bleakly maybe that I did a second ago for Bureau Valley, because I do think that they're going to be sitting looking into the playoffs. But I think that, like you said, they will need to win one of those kind of toss-up games to secure their spot to get in.
Yeah. And I think we should mention, we talked a little bit about it in one of our early episodes from this summer. They end up moving from the larger division in the Three Rivers, where they were going up against the likes of Kewanee, Princeton, Hall, some schools that were bigger, bigger than them enrollment wise. And they were kind of on the smaller end of that conference division. They're in a very similar situation here. Maybe they might be the smallest in their side of the division here. That's not to say that, wins, can come against any size school, but it's a similar setup. They travel a little more. These schools are a little closer to their enrollment size, so they're getting closer. Ultimately, I would love to see Bureau Valley playing on the more Lincoln Trail side of things, just because that would mean some closer rivalries for us week in and week out. I would love to see Bureau Valley playing Anawan Weathersfield, Roval Williamsfield, Stark County.
For somebody might have told me this or I heard this. I think they're doing that next year for all other sports.
For all other sports, not football.
Right. Kind of like how the track used to be like Big Rivers and track for different sports.
Yes.
Kind of like the similar thing. Again, I could be completely wrong about that, but I thought I had heard that Bureau Valley is playing for their other sports, not football, in these bigger schools, but then everything except football next year will kind of go back into that smaller side. I don't know.
I think at this point, I think the plan is the same moving forward. They're going to keep these they're going to keep this conference alignment in football, but I don't know that anything's set in stone, but and
I mean the makeup of conferences and all that, it could change tomorrow. So we never know, but
no, I think Bureau Valley is positioned to have success in this conference. I just think that I would love to see them not having to travel as far. And I think some closer games with some really established programs, the ones I already referenced, I just think would lead to some more fun, natural rivalries locally.
Yeah, I mean I'll call their biggest 3 games against Ridgeview, Lexington, Farmington, and Macomb are all on the road.
Yeah, it's tough. That's tough. But again, you got to love if you're going into a gauntlet like that, if you're going into a battle like that, you got some guys who've seen a lot of football. They've played a lot of varsity minutes. So they're,
Can they weather the storm, Greg?
I got nothing else.
You had one earlier. I had to do it.
All right, I got nothing else on there. There you go. All right. So we'll see how Bureau Valley can move into the conference here. A few more teams to talk about. Lewistown a year ago, 1-8. They were 0-9 in 2012. So they did manage to get one win a year ago. David Rodas, head coach. This will be his 3rd season as the head coach of the Lewiston Co-op. He took over for longtime head coach David Winkler, who'd been there since the year 2000. So when it was under his tenure, they made the playoffs 12 times. They had a 12-win season in 2010. So the success was there not that long ago. Obviously, it's an uphill climb. With Rodas now in his 3rd season, maybe you see some positive momentum from kids buying in, getting comfortable with his scheme, with his system. Like I said, it's an uphill climb, but the more established foundation they have under Coach Rodas, I think that's a good thing for this Lewiston program.
Yep, totally agree.
Yep. All right, let's head into Elmwood Brimfield. We got to make a note here. We got to give a shout out to Todd Hollis, the head coach of Elmwood Brimfield. Mitch, he was the first coach to fill out the form, our preview form. As soon as we sent it, he sent his back. So thank you
love
to
that.
Coach Hollis. We love it.
Extra points there because sometimes we have to track these coaches down. So shout out to Coach Hollis for being the first.
We absolutely love it. So yeah, in the form that Coach Hollis filled out, they returned 6 on offense, 7 on defense. One of the big names, we talked about him last year, two-way player, Bo Windish, senior running back, 2-year starter. And as a linebacker, he's a 4-year starter. He was mentioned in the Peoria Journal-Star as a player to watch. So certainly a player that's going to have an impact for this team for sure. Aaron Brown, a senior back, 4-year starter. Sawyer Brown, a senior at a 2-year starter at center. Tight end, Tommy Burkett at tight end as well. You have Aaron Brown on the defensive side of the ball. Eric Vasquez on the defensive side of the ball. Johnny Lance, also a 2-year starter on defense. So a good core of returning starters here with a lot of experience. That's invaluable for another team, Mitch, that was 4 wins a year ago, but looking to make that move into that 5, 6 or more.
Yeah, you just said it. I mean, you have 2 guys on either side of the ball that are 4-year starters coming back. So that's great. And as coach mentioned, it's, that invaluable experience. It's what they call it, institutional memory. You have a group of people that have been there for a while, know how to win, know how to play. And that's great. So having those guys back, like you mentioned, 6 on offense, 7 on defense. You mentioned Aaron Brown and Bo Windish as 4-year players. I think this is really I think this season is going to give Elmwood Brimfield that chance to improve on that 4-5 a year ago and get back into the playoffs.
Yeah. So they have a big group of seniors, 16. So that provides some depth here, which is always good as we talk about with all these teams, saying what's a key? Staying healthy. That depth is huge. We'll talk about games to watch for. They start at Knoxville on the road. Coach Hollis says playing at Dennis Larson Field in Knoxville, always a tough test. So it'll be very telling coming out of week 1, kind of how they stack up. So that'll be a game to watch. We'll talk about more games to watch here. But how about this Elmwood Brimfield team, Mitch? Good athletes, pretty smart football players too.
Yeah, they've got 3 valedictorians with perfect GPA, obviously, on the one on the offensive line, one on the defensive line, and one in special teams as the kicker. So yeah, they are well versed here on and off the field at Elmwood Brimfield, no doubt.
Mitch, did you have any valedictorians on your offensive line playing ahead of you at Morrison?
No shot.
That's kind of the answer I was hoping for. I set you up for that one. So, yeah. All right. So yeah, this is a team again that I think has, something to prove, right? 4 wins a year ago, but there's a lot there. There's a lot to like. Very similar to what we just talked about a minute ago with Bureau Valley. It's a lot back, a lot of experience, a lot to like. So there's some, we'll get to it. There's some games here that are very intriguing in this schedule. The team that everybody's going to be looking for on their schedule. Maybe we saved the best for last. They were the conference champion a year ago. Farmington, the Farmington Farmers, head coach Toby Vallis. Now, he came in 2nd place behind Coach Hollis. Just missed getting his response in first. So close, but Coach Hollis got you, Toby.
How about the Lincolnland coming in strong?
There you go. They were 9-2 a year ago. They lost in the 2nd round of the playoffs to Bloomington Central Catholic. But hey, Mitch, they were a great team a year ago, and now they return 10 on offense, 9 on defense.
If memory serves me right, and I wasn't on 2 shows, that's got to be the most.
Yeah,
out of any team. I think that's the most returning starters.
I mean, we've talked a lot about Princeton and having a lot returning as a good team.
Yeah,
but 10 and 9 is a lot. So
goodness,
some of the names we know them very well. Lane Wheelwright, quarterback. He was our player of the year in the conference a year ago at quarterback. Over 1,300 yards passing. He had over 1,000 yards rushing, 34 total touchdowns. He can do it all.
I think he was my fantasy QB. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he might have. That's a good pick. It's a good pick.
Yeah, that's. You just mentioned a dual threat guy over 1,000 yards on through the air and on the ground. 34 touchdowns. My goodness.
Yeah. So Logan Utt at running back is back again this year. 776 yards, 9 touchdowns, 17.8 yards per carry. What a stat.
What's the math there, Greg? How many carries was that?
I don't know, but I'm just impressed with. Don't make me do math. Come on, man.
I'm trying to do it in my head, and what is it? I don't know.
It's not even fair.
So, let's talk about Jack Gronwald.
Jack Gronwald,
34 receptions, 552 yards, 7 touchdowns through the air. Not doing that per catch math either. You've also got an honorable mention All-Stater coming back, and Caden Mowen plays guard. You've got Jarrett Bowser. There, the free safety in the backfield and the defensive side. Carter Lambin. Remember talking about him? 6 blocked punts last year, Greg. 6.
That's crazy. That's such a crazy stat. That's amazing.
As soon as I saw that name, I was like, I know exactly who that is.
Yeah. I mean, how did that, like, that's more than, a lot of blocking punts. Let's be honest. Like, a lot of
teams don't get that many.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of it is luck most of the time, right? Like, it's just, it's a blown assignment, or I don't know. I'm not a football coach, but
no, I'm not going to say it's luck. I will say that a couple years ago, and again, I talked on this show probably before that I'm a Notre Dame fan. And I never heard, and certainly the coach isn't going to tip his hand, but their special teams coach, who now got hired in the NFL, they blocked a ton of punts that year. He had some sort of strategy, and it was some sort of, stunt or some sort of look that they could always find a gap. And it was really fun to watch. I mean, it was one of those things, if their opponent was on 4th down, it was like the crowd got up because they knew something fun was going to happen. So I'm not going to call it luck on Lamon's part at all, but certainly to have that kind of knack, that knack for the ball hawk type of thing. And even just to get, I mean, it's one thing to kind of get up there and, kind of throw your hands at it, but it's another to make contact. So, yeah, great for him. That was amazing last year.
No, I want to clarify. My whole thought was going to be sometimes blocking kicks can be lucky, right? But I think in this case, once you got 6 of them in 1 year, clearly it's not luck anymore. You're doing something. There's something strategic or some kind of athletic edge that you have. So no. I don't want to ever insinuate that many is luck. But I think a lot of times, 1 here or there, it's a fluke thing. But 6, you're doing so. There's something that's happening that's working well. So,
no doubt.
As my son would say when he plays NCAA college football on PS5, that it's just get on the edge and spam X, and then So,
have you played him yet?
I haven't had a chance to play the game yet, and I'm mad that I haven't, because he's down here every night. He's killing it. You don't
want that smoke.
No. And now that the game is true to reality, Mitch, my son loves the transfer portal. So,
oh boy,
yeah. So he played 1 year. We're going off the rails here. He played 1 year at BYU, and he said, "Now I'm going to transfer to Texas." And they won a national title. Then he said, "Now I'm going to transfer to Georgia." So, the video game is true to life. So
no doubt about that.
All right.
Hey, well, back to Farmington.
Speaking of very good football teams, let's get back.
No transfer portal here at Farmington, because they got a lot of experience. They retain a lot of experience. They're really sized well on the outside at the wide receiver. They got a lot of depth here. So that continuity, again, having these players that have played for a long time, played together. Now look, we were just talking about Carter Lambin. In coach's notes here, says special teams needs to make a big step. What does he want? 12? I don't get it.
Yeah. So interesting note, senior captain Carter Lambin is the grandson of Geneseo football great Wayne Strader, who played for the Dallas Cowboys. I've heard Dan Pearson, who's a Geneseo, graduate and has lived in Geneseo. He's talked about, Wayne. So that's a cool little note to hear there. So
yeah, great.
Yeah. So
overall, this team, I mean, you got storylines everywhere. You got great players everywhere. If you want to jump into predictions, I'll save you some time. I do think this will be Farmington's year to repeat. They've just got so much coming back. I really, really enjoy watching Lane Wheelwright play with Udd and Gronwald. This team is going to be fun to watch. Maybe don't have such as tough of a draw in the playoffs there with that that Bloomington Central Catholic team, but I really, really enjoy what Farmington has done. I think they are going to be very, very good this year. They will be my pick to win this year.
Yeah, I think over the years we've seen this Farmington program build into a consistent winner year in and year out. And with this kind of talent and this kind of experience back, I think there's a lot on the table for them. There's a lot of opportunity here. So before we get into I will agree with you. I think that Farmington is the top team in the conference. But before we get into maybe who's in second place, because that's kind of where the real interesting conversation I think comes out in a lot of these conferences in the divisions. Let's go with what is Farmington's biggest challenge of the year. Not saying they're going to run the table at 9-0. They could. Not saying that's going to happen, but what teams do you look at if we're looking at matchups here?
In years past, I would say they're out of conference game against St. Teresa, but St. Teresa at least last year wasn't the team that they were 2 years ago. But I said it before. I think that it's going to be a fun game with Anwan Wethersfield. You've got Zeb Rashid versus Lane Wheelwright. I think that's a really, really fun matchup. In terms of on their side of the division, I do think Macomb's going to make a jump this year. I do like if you wanted me to guess who is going to take second, I will take a stab at saying Macomb will make the jump to get second over Knoxville. So let's say, what is that, week 6? Home game for Farmington, hosting Macomb could determine this large side. But again, with Macomb has coming back, they've got a great passing attack too. Should be a lot of offense in that game. And if I had to pick one, even though I'm not predicting it to end that way, I would say that Macomb game is a fun, possibly call it a trap, whatever you want to call it. Maybe their most intriguing game this year.
Okay. I'm looking at Knoxville as that. I like Knoxville there. I'm looking at that week 9 matchup where I like Farmington
on the road.
Yep.
On the road.
I like Farmington a lot, but they host Farmington in week 9. And hey, we've seen it. We've been on the Instant Reacts pod after week 9. Weird things happen, man.
Well, weird things definitely happen.
Yep.
You could see 2 teams in 2-way there jostling for a better playoff seed. I guess I don't think that game will have anything to do with who wins the conference. But Knoxville could be playing for a higher seed in 2-way, which could be pivotal based on the 2-way brackets that we've seen in years past.
Yeah, I love that. That Knoxville-Macomb matchup is interesting. I'm giving the edge to Knoxville. I think they stay right there. I think they'll finish second behind Farmington in that week 9 showdown. But how about another matchup in there? I love Knoxville going on the road to Bureau Valley in the middle of the season.
Yeah,
I think that's a game that could be interesting to watch. And like you said, Macomb is certainly in that mix. You're high on them finishing second. They have some intriguing matchups, but along the way,
I like Illini West in Knoxville there in week 6. That'll be fun.
Yep. What about like that? You look at West Hancock. I'm trying to find their schedule here real quick, but you have West Hancock opening on the road at Deer Creek Mackinac.
Great place to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
It's a fun stadium.
But end their season with Knoxville, Illini West, Bureau Valley. It just seems like between West Hancock, if they're going to prove something, it's against 3 teams to finish their schedule that I think will all be in the playoff mix. So
yeah,
I think if things go well early in the season for West Hancock, they could be playing some meaningful football in weeks 7, 8, and 9 against some teams that are also battling, for playoff seeding, playoff spots.
Yeah, and not to jump back to the Western Big 6, but it kind of reminds me of that because every year in weeks 7, 8, and 9, you have those teams that kind of you just mentioned are playing one another, and you see the standings just kind of go, up and down, and just because those teams, again, those games are at the back end of the year. So yeah, that's a great point there. A lot of intrigue, a lot of teams, especially on this large side with talent coming back. Should see a lot of great football here on Fridays in this conference.
A lot of great football from this conference and from all the conferences. Mitch, that's it. Time to wrap it up. Put a bow on it. Our season previews are now in the books. They're recorded. They're out there. We're ready for the real deal here. So, of course, if you haven't heard, go back, listen to the Northwest Upstate Illini in the 8-man conference or the 8-man season preview. That's with Kyle Kampmeyer and Mitch. You were on that one. We had Ty Taylor step in and talk about the Three Rivers Athletic Conference. We had the gang from WQAD and Matt Schuckman talk Western Big Six. And now here we are wrapping up with the Lincolnland. So that's it. Are we ready for some scrimmages? We're going to be talking scrimmages for the first time ever this next week.
Yeah, I've seen some teams doing it. I can't remember who I saw, but doesn't matter. So yeah, tell the folks what we got coming up.
Okay. So next week, next Tuesday, we'll be back and we'll be recapping some scrimmages that happened, and then we'll be talking week 1. We'll be previewing week 1 matchups. So we'll be jumping right in. We'll be ready for kickoff. So we're here. We're right on the verge of everything. So
yeah. Boy, it's hard to believe, but yeah, school's back in session now for some of these schools. And yeah, those lights are going to turn on quicker than we think. So yeah, looking forward to it. Good to get all these conferences wrapped up on the preview side. And now let's get into the real thing.
Yep. Well, absolutely. We encourage everyone to head out, find us on X if you haven't already. You can also find our YouTube channel and our Instagram page, which we're new to. We're getting that thing up and rolling. So of course, View from West Pod, you can find us on any of those outlets. We'll be posting individual season previews, some little video clips there. And of course, go out, buy some View from the West t-shirts, buy some merch. The store is open right now. Link is available in this description. Store is available through August 28th. We thank Breedloves. We love it. We love the shirts. We're excited to get them out there, get them on your back, get them ready for the bleachers and for the stands for Friday nights. So, all right, Mitch. Like I said, the previews are done. We're time to start talking week 1. That'll be next week. So we'll see you then. That'll do it for this week's episode of View from the West. Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to go out to Apple Podcasts or Podbean and subscribe so you can follow along, and downloads will come automatically every week. You can follow along on Twitter at ViewFromWestPod. You can also email me if you're interested in being a sponsor, viewfromwestpod@gmail.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.